Hello, this is Topical Idiocy with Shlok and Aarman, where we cover topics we are unqualified to tackle. Before we get started on what the topic is, I think we should specify what our background is a little bit. I think that'll help because I'm not,
Given this is the first episode.
yes, very good. Yeah, for sure. So I'm a first year college student. I'm a freshman, and I guess I'm going to be a sophomore soon if things go well. You
I
and
am a high
you, I
school
mean,
senior. I will
yes,
be attending the University of Chicago next year, and I am
yeah,
planning to major in economics.
okay. What? You already picked that out? Okay, yeah, sure.
Thinking about it. I have to seem
All right.
qualified.
Here's the thing. Yeah, no. Here's the thing. Like a lot of high school seniors will say, like, yeah, I got my major, and then they'll get to college and they'll be like, yeah,
And
now
then
I'm in art
nothing.
history. Like I don't. It just seems more
Yeah,
fun.
I was pretty confident about that myself, and that I was like, you told me that, and I was like, I'm not going to change. And now I'm being in what they call at East Chicago an
Yeah.
econ bro.
I can actually imagine that. I feel like econ would be the most broy kind of subject out there. Not that it's like an easy subject, but just like yeah, Keynesian markets and it's like I just imagine like jocks saying that. How
But
hilarious would it
anyways,
be?
back to the topic.
Anyway, yeah,
Today,
wait, hold on. I'm a freshman at Wesleyan University. I forgot that we were doing that. And I'm a prospective computer science major, which is probably not that liable to change because it's not, whatever. Anyway, the point of this podcast, the reason why it's called Topical Idiocy is because we are deliberately making kind of casual swipes at topics that normally we don't really talk about that much. So it's not going to be like, besides this one episode, it's not going to be just, what did Trump do? Like, that was fun. But it'll be things that we find kind of interesting outside of just what's covered on the daily news. And the idiocy part there is because even though Armand and I are both incredibly pretentious individuals, we want to give the air that we're not pretentious. And that's the point of it. So we drag you in thinking like, oh, you know what? This will be different, but come on. We're both like 18 thinking that like it's fine for us to have a podcast. That's already kind of pretentious. So yeah. All right.
yeah.
But introduce the
Uh,
topic. Go ahead.
with that in mind, today we thought it would be interesting to opine about the Democratic Party with the recent dropping out of Sanders,
Mhm.
and really how we got here and what we can see with this going forward. I
Yeah, I
think
mean
for the
we've
sake
got our
of,
candidate, right?
yeah,
We're done.
Uncle Joe Biden.
Yes. Everyone's uncle. But really no one's uncle. Yeah.
Just for complete transparency, we should be giving our
Oh
top
well,
three
yes. Yeah.
candidates that we
That's
supported.
very good.
Uh,
Yeah.
Again, there were 30 something, or no, actually, there were 27 members who were running for the Democratic primary, three Republicans, or four Republicans challenging Trump.
My God.
Uh,
Have they all dropped out?
they have all dropped out.
I've not paid attention to Republicans at all. Oof, that is unfortunate.
Yeah, but for the sake of transparency, who were
Yeah,
your favorites from the 28 Democrats running for the nomination?
sure. That's a good question. Let's see. Well, first, okay, yeah, that's pretty easy. My favorite guy running was Andrew Yang. He was awesome. He's the guy that was like, he was the Asian guy who was really for universal basic income. He was like 44. He still is. He's still alive. I don't know why I'm talking about him in the past tense. God. Anyway, yeah, Andrew Yang, he talked about universal basic income, but he had a lot of other policies that were kind of interesting. He also had like a very cultural kind of focus in mind, like when he talked about capitalism and everything. But anyway, that was my first guy. Second guy was Bernie Sanders. I found him really interesting because, again, just like a really cool ethos. He seemed really ethical and he also seemed really focused, even though I didn't agree with him on everything. And then third guy that I found really interesting might have been Elizabeth Warren, probably. Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of the other candidates just seemed like they weren't that fascinating. I really hated Pete Buttigieg. I really dislike Mike Bloomberg. I'm not a big fan of Joe Biden right now, I'll be honest. but what can you do? What about you?
Yeah, so mine is pretty similar. My top candidate was Bernie Sanders, and Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard. Mainly those three, just because not only the perspective they brought to the race, but also how they changed really how the debate was being discussed, or the
Yes.
uh, primary was being discussed.
Yeah.
Gabbard's foreign policy views were really underrepresented before her. I don't think anyone really talked about the military-industrial complex with that same light as she did, which I think was fascinating. And also, she brought a huge ferocity to the debates
She
in
was like a
general, which
Bond villain. It was kind of
yeah,
awesome. She was
it
so cool. It was so
was
great. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Andrew Yang, of course, Shlok mentioned the cultural impact he had, but really the appeal of him outside of the Democratic Party was fascinating. And again, how he
Yes.
talked about it from an economic standpoint, not only just of what's going to help the GDP, really what isn't going to help what is left behind from the GDP or out of the GDP. Um, and the idea of really just the role of the government should be letting everyone have a happy life, maybe not the richest life, but something they can have dignity with. And I think that was a really great ethos that he brought to the campaign and to the discussion in general. And then Bernie Sanders echoing a lot of the same uh, morals and ethics as Yang did, but with a completely different approach. I thought both were fascinating, well, all three. Um, and also just the success of these members, with two of them, Sanders and Yang, being outside of the Democratic Party, being really interesting. The fact that they did so well, I think, is a good sign of our democracy. And also, um, I guess, what do we think? With There was a lot of critiques of Sanders being an independent and a democratic socialist, and he shouldn't be even allowed in the Democratic um,
Mm,
primary. I guess, what do you
sure.
think about his stance?
It was the same reason why I think Andrew Yang also articulated why he was running as a Democrat, because originally when he started, I don't know what interview he said. I don't really want to like bring up specific clips or anything either. So I'd rather we just it'd be fine if we just kept it within the scope of what we kind of remember. But he had said in some interview that like he thought about coming into the race that he was just a straightforward Democrat with like some kind of zany, interesting ideas like UBI and focusing on automation as like the impending threat economically and all of that. But coming out of it, I think he's been quoted as saying like maybe I'm a little more libertarian than I thought I would be, and he's not really. He's still kind of outside of that political spectrum. Still, though, him running as a Democrat is him being a little what's the word for it? Practical, I guess. Him being practical as a politician. Same thing with Bernie Sanders. If the question is whether they should be allowed to be practical, because like in a two-party system, if you run outside of the party, the only person that could really like have a chance of winning is Teddy Roosevelt, and that guy's dead. So like otherwise, I mean, no, I like you have to run as either one of the two parties, and it's really just a matter of like which one kind of works better. I think Bernie Sanders being a Democrat makes sense. I don't know why why like are you saying that like the Democratic Party didn't think that it was appropriate for him to run as a Democrat or
I mean that there was a lot of criticism. Like Bernie Sanders had to constantly explain, at least in the early stages, and even in 2016 as well, why he was running in the Democratic Party and
oh sure.
why
Sure, sure,
this is
sure.
his second time running for running for the nomination instead
Yeah.
of going the independent route as he has been since his time as mayor in Burlington.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I think we both know that the only way he could have had any chance of winning was if he ran as a Democrat, because no independent was going to win anyway. Um, yeah, the criticism of it does make a little sense. I think Bernie's a very interesting guy where I think he's more useful as and we'll talk about this later, but he's more useful as like um, as a sort of portrait of a politician, as more of an ideal than an actual leader, because he doesn't have a lot of experience. And when you look at his like Senate record, he doesn't have a lot of experience getting concrete things done, right? Besides, like, his moment in the debate, and this will sound like deja vu to you, but his moment in the debate where, he was like, I wrote the bill myself, but he used a swear word. He, like, besides that part, and besides maybe his like campaigning for like Medicare for all for a long time and everything. Otherwise, however, he's not like the kind of guy that, at least, it doesn't seem like he was the kind of politician that, you know, really conferred with a lot of other politicians and got things done by compromising and getting out legislation that was, you know, really effective. Like, Elizabeth Warren's been a senator for a lot shorter than he has, and she already seems to have the reputation of a senator that got a lot more done during her tenure, at least because she seemed more focused, right? Because he seems like the kind of guy that just does a bunch of, I don't know, like
Mhm.
protest votes and everything. So yeah.
Well, what I think that view of Sanders has been quite misinformed and just more of a reputation, well, an aspect of his reputation rather than his actual time in the Congress. He, for example, one of his biggest accomplishments in terms of original led bills that he worked with was with John McCain in terms
Mhm.
of the restructuring of the veterans healthcare system. While the success of that has been more up in the air, I think that is what you have seen because Bernie Sanders is not affiliated with the Democratic Party, is that he is not responsible and liable to be following the same, uh, really like belonging to that same group. Like he can, yeah, you're right. He can cast these protest votes while maintaining his own ideological purity, and we saw that with the Iraq War, for instance, and we saw that um, notably for the one of the 2010 in 2010, Bernie Sanders gave I think it was like an 8.5 hour filibuster um, on a compromise struck by Vice President Joe Biden and Mitch McConnell to give huge tax breaks to the 1%, while and the compromise being the continuation of many of these unemployment benefits from the 2008 recession. And in that speech, in that filibuster, he really just criticized the nature of the compromise. I don't think he acknowledged what I thought was really interesting is he acknowledged the amount of debt that this would cause
Mhm.
with the huge tax cuts, but also really contrasting how Republicans have played the game of politics and how Democrats have played the game of politics. The
Sure.
unemployment benefits that were on the table were really routine. They were traditional agreements between Democrats and Republicans spanning decades of when the unemployment rate is above 7%, as it was back then in 2010, to continue strong unemployment benefits to continue to move the economy forward. All
Mhm.
of a sudden, Mitch McConnell decided, hey, let's use this as a bargaining chip. Decided, hey, let's make this something we're giving up in order to get tax cuts for the rich. Something that really shouldn't have been, like, Democrats didn't get a fair end of the deal, whereas Republicans got everything despite them being in the minority. Bernie Sanders was one of the few people to actually vote against that and said that we could do better. And I think that message was really interesting coming from him.
Yeah, I
I
mean, I
don't
think you're
think.
okay.
No, no,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead. Go ahead. I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
uh, I think the nature of compromises and the nature of the Democratic Party as not fighting as aggressively for its issues and trying really not playing politics as well as Republicans
That's
has
fair.
led
Yeah, for
his
sure.
stance to being more radical.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. That's true. No, yeah, then I get what you mean. But what I kind of meant was that, like, if you look at like the amount of legislation that he's actually passed as a senator himself, and I mean that's not a perfect like designation for whether you're a effective senator or not. It's still kind of few, and you're probably right that like the reason why is because of his own political power, like just because of the nature of compromise and the nature of like there are other Republicans that'll uh, there are just other points of views that don't particularly mesh with him, so he can't pass a ton of things or sponsor a lot of bills. But I don't know. It always seemed to me though that Bernie Sanders was just the kind of guy that like he was just more useful at pushing the conversation in a more focused way, which is what he did, right? 2016
Mhm.
Medicare for all was like this really crazy idea, and Hillary Clinton was like, we'll give that. And then, direct quote, by the way, exactly what she sounds like. Did you like that impression? and But 2020, right? A bunch of Democrats start stepping forward, and that's kind of a mainstream point of view that's taken, right? Suddenly, like
Mhm.
a guy like Pete Buttigieg, who would be mainstream in 2016 in terms of his healthcare view, that's now like the kind of point of view that you'd attack him for a little bit. You'd be like, why? That's such a weird perspective to take. So I thought that was, I mean, that's kind of cool. But being the guy himself to lead and to be president, I think is a little harder.
I
Where
think,
he just doesn't seem, yeah, yeah,
well, I think we could say, in quite honestly, similar things about Trump back then. Um,
for sure,
in like the lead
yeah,
up to the
yeah,
primary and his presidency,
yeah.
his views were very contradictory to the free market neoliberalist pillars of the Republican Party back then. The idea of, for example, preventing many of his views align with Senator Sanders from like the perspective of trade and the economy. Uh,
Oh, right, as in like
Not all.
protectionist kind of thing, sure,
Yeah,
yeah,
and more of a mercantilist for economic system. And back then, that would have been a radical view. That would have been shared by very, very few members of his own
can you
party.
define these terms actually? Could you, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that would help.
uh,
Yes, please.
so neoliberalism, uh, liberalism is the idea of more of an open economy and the more idea of rule by competition.
Hmm.
Um, Neoliberalism is more the resurgence of that view, both in the Republican and Democratic Party, and it's a
Hmm.
more it aligns more with um, what was it, the Freedom Caucus, led by Paul Ryan, and it evokes more of those ideas of lowering the amount of government involvement, um, lowering the national debt, and really focusing more on that rather than uh, focusing on the plight of American workers, which is what Trump focused on. And I think is probably the reason why he captivated such a great base, because he really returned the conversation back to people. Um, Whether he has done much to do that or not, that's up for discussion. But I think the reason why his base is so strong is because of that. Was other members of Congress, many of its other opponents talked about just reducing the role of the government uh, in lowering the national debt rather than
Yeah,
focusing on actual people. And so, I think that's why you see so much of the crossover support between Trump and Sanders. Um, like both focus on the plight of people rather
yeah.
than ideas so much.
And they were pretty similar during the 2016 election. I mean, Bernie Sanders wasn't really, as far as I can tell, he didn't have a tape with Billy Bush, I'm pretty sure. But like besides that kind of thing, they were pretty similar in their sort of messaging and in the aggressiveness of their support. What is interesting is why that didn't pan out for him in the same way it panned out for Trump, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I like That's kind of fascinating. I think maybe because when Trump was running, he was running against such a divisive field that his sort of support group was so radical and so like consolidated that it was almost like a plurality, you know? And so it
Yeah,
wasn't really a majority. And like all the kind of like moderate Republicans probably just split up amongst like Kasich. It was like if you were a moderate Republican and you were fine with like the Zodiac killer, then you went for Ted Cruz. If you were fine for like, if you were
another
fine with
Bush, he would have went
Ohio,
for Jeb.
you went for Jeb.
Yeah.
If you were fine with Ohio, which is tough, man. But then you went for Kasich, and then I guess that kind of split up that like set of it. There are probably so many reasons. We can't really get into like why Trump won because that's just too much.
Mhm.
That's too hard.
Yeah,
But
that'd be another episode. But I think like just in parallel, the split of the moderate vote before Klobuchar and Pete dropped out.
and that was the thing. Oh, that's an interesting point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the same way of that's kind of why Bernie couldn't have won because Bernie and Warren come from the same camp. And I would almost like, even with no real knowledge, I'm in the title, I'm definitely the idiocy part of it. So I'm completely fine owning this. But I am so certain that, like, if you put Bernie's camp and Warren's camp together, you'd get like a pretty large portion of the Democratic Party. And you'd
Mm-hmm.
get something that probably could have been, useful in getting delegates. And maybe, I don't know if it would have been the majority. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it would have still been a lot larger than like the sort of kind of like marginalization that we've seen of Bernie's support group. But
Mm-hmm.
still, Warren drops out, and Warren, as of now, has not endorsed Bernie, right?
Oh
Well,
well,
I'm sorry.
before
Before
Sanders
Bernie
dropped out.
dropped out, before Sanders. Imagine Warren endorses him now, and she's like, "Oh, whoops." No, but like Warren, as of like when she had dropped out, she didn't endorse Bernie right away. Didn't do it a week after. Up until Bernie dropped out, never endorsed him. But then
Mhm. Or
Klobuchar
never
drops
endorsed
out.
anyone.
They never endorsed anyone. But then Klobuchar drops out. Buttigieg drops out. Beto had dropped out a long time ago. All these people dropped out. Kamala dropped out. Kamala Harris, the person who mistakenly remembered that, like, man, okay, that was a dumb moment too. Everyone was like so in love with her for that moment. But even when that thing happened in the first debate, I was so like just like annoyed.
Like why over busing? I
Yes,
didn't
yes.
understand it. And her
And
own
also
views
like
were so similar to Biden's that she had to
yes,
clarify why they were different.
yes,
Like it wasn't
absolutely.
even
And
apparent on their own.
I mean, maybe we should give context for anyone listening who doesn't completely remember, because all these, there were like, I think, I don't want to, mischaracterize it, but at least like 7,000 debates happened over the past year. And,
Yeah.
and in that kind of thing, Kamala Harris, first debate, she like, it was a real manufactured moment. And I could really like picture Kamala
Mhm.
by herself, well, not by herself, with her
But
team.
with her campaign staff.
Yeah, with the campaign staff and the campaign manager. His name is probably like Howard or something. And he's like, all right, so he's just going to come up. He's like, as soon as Joe Biden mentions bus, you go like, oh, you said bus? I'll show you bus. And it's like, what? And she talks about something that he couldn't have had power over. He couldn't have done anything to influence. He was a senator at that
And
time, correct?
it was such an inconsequential policy opinion.
Yeah.
And again, it was furthered by the fact that this was in, I think, definitely before 2000, I think in the 70s or 80s. And it was a policy difference argued with a strong emotional appeal.
Yeah.
And it felt good.
Yeah. Yeah.
When
Yeah.
And I think
Wow.
contrast Tulsi Gabbard with Kamala Harris. Both were supposedly aggressive. I
Mm-hmm.
really feel like Tulsi Gabbard had reason to disagree beyond just I want support and I want media love and attention.
Yes.
I think
Yes,
she
for sure.
really showed difference.
For sure.
And
But even if she
specifically
didn't,
her,
it's just like the emotionality of her argument just worked against her. And I didn't feel, I mean, like everyone else really liked it. Oh, okay, fine. It worked against her for me, but everyone else loved it. So maybe it was actually really good. But
it's just
that's
not sustainable.
no, it's not. It's not. And that's why, I mean, she was one of the first ones to drop out, and she was just so irritating to like, it just turned out to, I don't know. You can't have, what was it, 27 candidates and have 27 different opinions that are different enough to like justify having 27
Mm-hmm.
candidates. They didn't have like consistent messages that were really effective. That's the
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing that makes me dislike the Democratic Party sometimes. When you just rely on like identity politics and emotionality, it can't carry you far enough to the point where like you're uniting like an Ohio town with like a California majority. You can't put those kinds of people together behind such a
Yeah,
inconsequential message.
I think it's interesting too. Just contrasting the Republican Party's main support with the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is a bunch of different interest groups coming together. You have a lot of educated people, highly educated people. You have a decent amount of working class people. You have a lot of multiracial people. The support is much less monolithic than the Republican Party. Yes, there are a
For sure.
few different groups, but mainly you have to appeal to that uh, cultural perspective. There is, yes, of course, people whose focus is on the economy and economic policy, but I don't think it's
You're
that
doing a very
substantive.
good job of dancing around what you're trying to say. I mean, you could very easily just say the racial, but it's very interesting. This is very fun to listen to. But yeah, I totally agree. But what I meant to when I kind of got aggravated about, maybe that's what the emotionality is there for, to aggravate people, I guess. But 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 what I meant about the Kamala Harris thing was that even though she had used Joe Biden for some real political point, she ended up endorsing him, right?
Mhm.
So like the
But with
moderates consolidated. They consolidated
yeah,
their support behind Joe Biden, even if they don't like each other. Doesn't even matter. They did it because they knew it was right. Sanders, on the other hand, just never seemed like the kind of guy that could consolidate with anyone else. I don't think Sanders ever would. So
yeah, I think his greatest fault, what really led him to losing the nomination, was after Nevada. He should have called literally every candidate who dropped out, every major profile progressive, every major, even slightly left-leaning politician, and said, "Hey, we're about to win the party's nomination. We would like to have you and your voice represented," and just present that idea of consolidating support and uniting the party, because
it's very
everyone wanted
interesting.
Joe
Yeah.
Biden because they thought he was going to unite the party against Trump. Sanders, despite so many people, he talks about exit polls and pollsters saying that he won uh, the ideology of the party more than Joe Biden. He lost the electability debate. His ideas are popular with the majority of Democrats. For example, Medicare for all, raising taxes,
Yes.
expanding the
Yes.
social safety net. They're uh,
Absolutely.
they're popular. It's just he couldn't present himself as that
Yeah.
unity figure like Joe Biden
And
did.
unfortunately, that matters a ton. I mean, like
Yeah.
politics would like ever since. I mean, ever since like the inception of America, but probably ever since television, ever since any like kind of place where the image is placed before the actual policy, the image matters a lot more in more ways than one. And Sanders just doesn't have the image of the guy that like everyone can get behind. I
Hmm.
think a person will come out soon who is who is open to consolidating like their support, who is open to compromising with people. Compromising sounds dirty, but like conferring with other people and talking to other people and actually organizing with other people, right? Like in the same way that Obama was a community organizer, he was
Hmm.
used to like hearing out people's opinions and hearing them and then adjusting what he was saying so that he could represent them as well. Sanders doesn't have a lot of experience doing that, but I think someone will come out soon, hopefully, who is open to that, who has the attitude of like, yes, these are my policies, yes, these are incredibly important, but I also understand that if I'm going to get anywhere close to putting these in action, I'm going to have to endure a little bit of like busing comments or something. Like I don't even know what
I think
how you deal with that.
Elizabeth Warren, quite frankly, could have had the
Was that?
best chance of doing that
But she,
until she
yeah,
lost the left and then she lost the moderate and just really had
yes,
nothing left.
yes, yeah.
I think
She was for a while. I think maybe just for like a week or so. But she was like she was number one, right? I think.
again, this was before
Yeah, that's fair. This might
any
have been,
elections actually happened, but this
yeah,
was just a bunch of pollsters having
yes,
aggregate
yeah,
data.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I think this was also before Joe Biden ran was announced his candidacy,
yeah. That guy was
which
like an
also
atom bomb on
complicates
the whole
things.
thing. Yeah, yeah. He was insane. It like Bernie was like number one for such a long time,
And
and
even
then
before Joe Biden ran, like on CNN and MSNBC, they were always like, Bernie Sanders is leading until Joe Biden enters.
Yeah.
Like,
It felt like a wrestling match almost like, ooh, will he come in? Will he come in?
they're-
And then he did. And then it was like, oh yeah, I forgot about, he's just
Mhm.
like a nostalgic vote. I think, I mean, in the sort of broader question of like, why are we here? I think it's like maybe some people are freaked out by the guy who's president right now. Maybe not. Maybe it's fine. Um, but in the midst of like coronavirus right now, and in the midst of a lot of other kind of mishaps that Trump has sort of put the country through, and the sort of mishaps that I think Trump is just used to doing. That guy just seems like a mishap sometimes. But in that way, right, I think Joe Biden, for all his weird words and ramblings and
and
sometimes
gaffes.
and gaffes, that's a good word, and just him seeming like he doesn't know where he is. All of that aside, voting for him definitely seems like a vote for, hey, I remember the Obama era. I didn't really worry during the Obama era. It's kind of it. Now,
Mhm.
whether the Obama era is what we need again, I don't think it's true. I'm still for the vote that like Andrew Yang should come out of nowhere and just like just debate Trump and Biden simultaneously. He'd still win, but that's not going to happen unless it's in
I
like my
still
dreams or
think,
something.
yeah, I think I'm really curious to see how the debates will go. I was so
They're going to be so fun.
curious. I was so curious to see how Sanders would do though against Trump, just
Against, yeah,
because I
sure,
don't think he
sure.
would have been distracted by the diatribes and the name calling, and
No,
he
he
would
wouldn't
just
have been.
continue to focus on, hey, this is why you suck. Hey, when, like he wouldn't argue from like the moral high ground perspective, because in
Yeah.
all honesty, if you've been supporting Trump for 4 years, why are you going to change now based on an ethical argument?
Yes,
You would be
absolutely.
focusing on why he would be better for people than Donald Trump would be.
Yeah.
And I
And I don't
think
want
Joe
anyone,
Biden,
yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know if
yeah.
Joe Biden can do that.
I think Joe Biden, this is going to sound really mean, but understand that this is a joke. Joe Biden's real advantage is that if Trump starts going with diatribes, Joe Biden will forget what they are halfway through, and he'll still be focused on his message because that's all he can focus on. That's the meanest thing I'll ever say about him, because otherwise he seems like a really nice guy. He just seems really forgetful.
Yeah.
I'll just be honest
Um,
about that. Um, I think I would still vote for him over. I would, yeah, I'd obviously vote for him over Trump. That's not an argument for me. Whether people would, though, it's kind of weird because I think Sanders, and I don't want anyone listening to get the wrong idea. I really like Sanders. I really think he has like a real backbone. And I really think he knows how to focus on his message in a way that a lot of other people just don't, which is why Warren got so messed up throughout the campaign.
mhm.
Sanders was doing great against Trump. I think Sanders also had support from the same kind of people that Trump had support from. That would have been great. Where are we right now? We're at a place where we have a frankly geriatric guy that's redefined what that term even means as the Democratic nominee. And he's not, I don't know. I don't know what his policy positions are, frankly, besides like freedom and the USA.
Yeah,
And
I think that's
I was
interesting
Obama's
too.
friend, unless that's a bad thing. He's seen Caddyshack. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like old things, but like
Yeah. No, both.
he's been to a drive-in movie theater. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Um, but there were again just going into head-to-head matches before Corona, of course, um, between Biden and Trump and Sanders about again just speculating about who actually had electability. Both did. Both
Yes.
had slim chances at beating Trump, or not slim
Yes.
chances, but slim, just barely over a majority chance of beating Trump, just based on those early polls. Again, of course,
Yeah.
there's the argument that 9 months could change anything, which is true, but both had, and I think it's interesting, like how both could have won, despite being on completely ends of the
Different ends of
Democratic
the spectrum, for
ideological
sure.
spectrum.
Absolutely.
I think Bernie, by stealing votes from Trump, from more of the working class people,
Yeah.
um, and possibly bringing in new people, as in like younger
Does
people.
he do that? I mean, oh yeah, young people, yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Young
No, no,
people
no.
definitely.
Young people. Yeah.
And then Biden
Apathetic
by
voters.
stealing a lot more of those establishment conservatives, um,
Yes.
more high profile, higher educated conservative members, while also maintaining a lot of the support of the Democratic Party and losing a lot of turnover or switch, except the Sanders supporters.
Yeah. He'd lose a lot of the young people, although, I mean,
I don't
he,
know. I don't know if
yeah,
he
no,
would
you're right.
necessarily lose that
No,
many
you're
people
right.
because this was just a nomination, or this was just a like he lost
He'd
wrong
lose the
people.
Sanders supporters. He'd lose the ideological, like the far left kind of people for sure, I think.
I wouldn't even say the far left. I would say the disenfranchised Sanders supporters.
Oh no, what I mean by Sanders supporters is that they're very like, I mean, I'm not gonna negatively characterize them because I find them scary, but
Well, we're
they're
also them as well.
yeah. No, 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 but in the sense of like when we think of like what a Bernie bro is, like the kind of that kind of archetype, Yang Gang, right? Is like this not they're not a militant group, right? I don't even know why I
Yeah.
said that. But they are they're a very passionate political group,
Hmm.
but passionate to the point of I don't think the Yang Gang would vote for a person that is I don't think the Yang Gang would vote for Biden. I hope they do because I hope they realize that like Biden is our best chance of beating Trump because he's our only chance. I don't think the Bernie Bros would ever vote for Biden in
Yeah,
that.
I think.
I think they
Well,
see anyone not Bernie a, as just wrong.
well,
That's
I
what I
think
think.
Biden has to realize that he has to actually work to
Get them?
have their vote,
Yes,
and I think
absolutely.
the sort of entitlement that I've seen many members of the Democratic establishment uh, saying that really like just chastise, like this is what Hillary Clinton did. She chastised Trump supporters. She
Yep.
chastised Sanders. She didn't try to realize that no matter what, their vote, they have to vote their conscience.
Yes.
If they don't believe in you,
Yes.
they like why should you expect them to vote for you?
Yes. Absolutely.
And
It's
I
just
think
insane.
yeah, I think Biden is starting to realize that he has to win over that support. I don't
Yeah,
know how far he will
he did
be.
the woman thing, right?
Yeah, but
Where his
I
vice
don't think that
president's gonna be, oh, is it a woman of color or just a woman?
I think just a woman.
Okay, so he's not there fully yet, which is unfortunate for. It's so dumb. That's such a dumb thing to do. That's like tokenizing an actual what could have been like a step forward, but it's
Hmm.
very obviously a political move. And then the fact that it's not even packaged as like I think a person he literally just wants to appear
Hmm.
progressive, and it's like that almost feels less progressive. It just
Hmm.
feel
No, and I agree.
yeah, it's
I
just
think if he
terrible.
said, "I'm going to pick the best qualified person I think for
Yes,
the job,"
yes,
and it happened to be a woman, that
yeah,
would be much better.
yeah,
And then he would continue to say, "This is the best pick for the job." I
yes, absolutely.
I just think that
I
because
think
he
Kamala
branded it
Harris
in
might
such
be
a
his
way,
vice president. I feel like that might happen. That would be
would
really
be
funny, but I think it might happen.
well. I think he said this in the beginning of the race. I don't know if he has continued to reiterate this claim that he will only be a one-term president if elected.
He said that?
Essentially, in the
What?
beginning of the race. Yeah.
Aw. I mean, we make jokes about it, but it's always sad when someone says that about themselves. Is that
That's
true?
fair.
Is
What?
that true?
He
Wait.
said it in the beginning of the race.
Oh,
Um,
that's so terrible. Oh,
but again,
wow.
I haven't heard him say it anytime recently.
How could
And
you
I'm
vote for
thinking,
someone who says, okay, all right, whatever.
well, again, that gives into the age argument,
Yeah,
which I
yeah,
don't know what to
which
say.
is, I mean, there are no good points of, but the thing is, the age argument's also weird because when you looked at a guy like Pete Buttigieg, who literally just offered his age and maybe his resume, that was also kind of irritating because he was
Yeah,
like,
I still think Pete Buttigieg had. I loved the way initially how he.
he makes good
Uh,
shirts. Again, I thank you for the shirt. That was a good shirt. but
I gave Shlok to the viewers. I gave Shlok a Pete Buttigieg shirt for his birthday, knowing
that's the
entire
at college.
knowing
So
that
at
he did
college,
not
that's
like
the
him.
only shirt that I like. Wesleyan's just full of Warren and Bernie supporters, and like I keep talking about Andrew Yang, but all I wear is a Pete Buttigieg shirt. And so people are like, "Are you just a fan of Pete Buttigieg?" And I'm like, "How dare you? No." They're like, "Why are you wearing a shirt?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's just so comfy."
No, but
Gap
I
meets a new
did. In all
generation of
honesty, I
people.
did like how
Sorry,
I did
I'll
like how
stop.
Pete talked about the role of religion and trying to gain ownership of that. I think it was
Okay,
interesting. I think he just. I think it was a good reason to get him spotlight, and it was well deserved.
well, explain this to me. So you think that religion is like an important
No, but
point for the Democratic Party to sponsor, or is it more of
I think
pointing out the
relating it
hypocrisy of
back
the right?
to pointing out the hypocrisy of the right,
I that
because
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
and if Republicans continue to make decisions based on this moral calling, for example, what's his name, Mitt Romney
Hmm.
voted for for the impeachment of Donald Trump with a religious perspective.
Yes.
Questionable, sure, but to see them constantly evoke that for the reasoning of their decisions, while ignoring help the poor, help the sick,
Yeah.
help the
Yeah.
needy,
Yeah.
clothe the I don't know too much about Christianity, but there is a lot of
But Armand,
service
Armand,
toward others.
Armand, where in the and I'm not an expert on Christianity at all, but where in the Bible does it say you should raise the price of bread? Do you know
I
where?
don't know.
Do you know where it says that? It
No.
doesn't say that anywhere, right? No. He's a. I don't know. I totally agree with you, but he's a poser in that way, right? Is that? Am I quoting that
Yeah,
correctly? It's the bread
I,
prices thing.
I
It was the
really don't know where
scandal
you're
that he
getting
was
this from.
involved in. The McKinsey thing. At his time at McKinsey. Oh man, now I want to search
Explain
it
to the
up.
viewers too, by the way, because I don't
Okay,
even know
for sure.
this.
Because if it's yeah, if you're not gonna get it, then I don't know how anyone else is gonna. Yeah, bread fixing. That was it. Okay, okay, okay. So it was like for Kroger's or for some really. It was a Canadian grocery store, Loblaws, and it was a Canadian bread price fixing scandal where the point was that like the bread that was being sold there, McKinsey had basically advised. McKinsey is the consulting company that Pete Buttigieg worked for right outside of Oxford, which is a great way to spend your Rhodes scholarship. By the way, you get a Rhodes. Like I'm not. That's sarcasm for people listening. If you are a Rhodes scholar, just work at McKinsey for sure. For sure. Anyway, at McKinsey, apparently one of the projects that he was working on was grocery store pricing of bread, and he was advising this grocery store to fix the price of bread, which is unfortunate because that's like monopolistic, and that's also, making it harder for people that don't have the money to buy bread and whatever. It's anti-competitive, right?
Mhm.
Where in the Bible does it say you should do that? I don't know.
No, I think that revealed how much of a politician he was. Initially,
Yes,
reflecting back on that and how he utilized it so
he's very
much, I think
yeah,
it does
yeah.
seem very politician-y. But I do think, again, it's an interesting perspective.
Do you think
Why
he'll be the nominee in the future?
he's too conservative. Like he's
Yes.
on the
Okay.
like he's a centrist Democrat,
Yeah. Oh, you
and
think we're never gonna get centrist? Hold on.
I
Our
don't.
nominee is a centrist, though, right?
Is he? He was a part of the Obama
Joe Biden?
presidency. This is the thing.
Joe
I'm so.
Obama's a centrist, isn't he?
He was a progressive
He,
ish, but he was a progressive before it became
hey,
progressive politics. This is the idiocy part because
wait a
neither of
second.
us know who Joe Biden is. He is.
We are Joe Bidening Joe Biden. This is Bidenception right now. No, 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 hold
No,
on.
Joe Biden is a moderate. Is a
the
moderate.
accusation against Obama, and this had happened a lot throughout the like election campaign of 2020, right? Was that like even though he was progressive appearing, A lot of
He
the
wasn't
policies that he
actually.
enacted, yeah, a lot of the
And
policies that he
there's a
enacted
lot of
were moderate.
credence to that, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
for
Just
sure.
with free trade being a huge reason, or being
Yeah.
one of the biggest reasons, and also his compromises again with Mitch McConnell while Democrats were in the majority of the Senate.
I mean, the thing is, Mitch McConnell is just such a cute-looking person, right? Like you can't look at that guy and say, okay, fine, Mitch, let's not give health care to like millions of people. I agree with you.
I think he had some, and I think this is again the legacy of Obama is still being defined. Yes, he was progressive when it came to Medicare. No, he was not progressive when it came to um, sacrificing employment or tax cuts for employment benefits that were already
Absolutely.
existing.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, like TPP, NAFTA, and all these other free trade agreements that really accelerated manufacturing's decline and the loss of many of these low skill jobs without any chance of replacing them.
We're gonna have to do an episode on the trade policies that at least maybe
Yeah.
I should just research it, but I'd rather do an episode on it because
No,
I
I
don't
think
know
there's a
enough
lot to
about
learn about that as
yeah,
well, for me,
because
myself
I
as
don't
well,
know enough
if we
about
were
the
to go in
TPP
topic.
or NAFTA or why it's particularly like injurious to America itself. I think it would be kind of fascinating. It'd be kind of
Hmm.
cool to talk about.
Yeah.
I yeah, I mean it's only been oh, has it been 7 years since Obama's been president? 20 years? 35? It's only been 3 years. Oh
I think
man,
it'll be
so
really
sad.
interesting. Um, like the Obama's presidential library is going to be built right next to Chicago,
Oh yes, for sure. That'll be
and
fascinating
so
to
I
see.
think it'll be interesting to see again, and when that finally gets built, because there were some complications with it, um, it would be really interesting to not only just like film what actually happens in those opening addresses, because I will surely be there, but also just
Yeah.
to see how his legacy is remembered, because this is really his last chance. Besides, like if he does a bunch of book deals or whatever, which I think he will be
He
doing
has a bunch
if
of
anything.
Netflix deals as well.
Oh yeah, he does.
And
But
the
this is
the
in the point where he's
documentary that
trying to
won
curate his
best
presidency.
the best documentary winner at the Oscars was by him.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Produced by him. I don't think he was out there
I don't
documenting the thing himself. Ooh, he's going into filmmaking. No, no, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that would be a cool kind of opportunity for him to do that.
Hmm. No, I think that's fair. I think
Wait, are we off topic? Where are we right
a
now
little
on
bit, a
topic?
little
A
bit.
little bit? Okay, wait.
Um,
What is the okay? Where are we now? Where are we
uh,
right now? And how did we get here? I think
how
we've
did we
covered
get
how
here?
we got here, kind of, right?
Yeah. Well, what does this say for the future of the Democratic Party? Because I think a lot of Sanders supporters and many left-leaning supporters talked about this 2020 primary as being the search for the soul of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I
What are your
think,
thoughts on that?
I mean, before saying anything, I mean, like, and also for all of this, I'm not qualified at all to talk about any of this, but I don't think anyone
Really
really
is.
is.
And we'll have a future
Maybe,
episode about that.
yes, which is, that would be a very cool thing to say, a very cool thing to talk about, because, like, it's not, it's borderline annoying how many journalists will put up the pretense of, like, ah ha 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 ha, I worked on the political campaign of John Kerry. And so now I can talk about, like, the economy because they're just long sounding words that maybe are the same but they're not. A lot of politicians aren't qualified to talk about the economy. A lot of economists aren't qualified to talk about whatever, but this is a separate thing. But the future of the Democratic Party, I think, is always going to be, I don't know, I'm always of the opinion that like centrists are always kind of going to win, you know just because I think they are compromisers and organizers, and they like that's kind of just their nature. And I think that that's always going to be the spirit that sort of wins. Um, I very seriously believe that Marianne Williamson, where I messed up her name, Marianne Williamson is going to be this huge political icon in the future. She, listen, like, okay, my serious answer is that I think centrists are going to be the future of the party still. I think we're going to be moving slightly towards the left. I hope that we have more solutions that are put forth by citizens first and then the government, which is how I think a lot of solutions are put forward, right? Like racial
Mhm.
segregation, in a way, was ended by the government, but it was also ended by MLK first, right? He put forth the example, and the government followed suit because then all the people followed that. That was a mangled explanation. That was stupid.
Yeah,
Don't
it's
even
okay.
listen to
Don't
that.
worry.
Don't
This is
listen to
the
that.
idiocy part of it.
Yes, yes. Okay, all right. Can I explain that again? What I mean is that individuals put forth ideas that seem radical at the time, and then when they gain a plurality over the amount of people, over like a party or a nation, then that becomes a mainstream idea, and then the government follows. That's what I mean. Yeah, I don't think that's a radical thing to say. Yeah, I think that's fine. And so I think that's how a lot of change will happen. I don't think it'll be put forth by politicians. I don't think it'll be put forth by Democrats. I don't think Pete Buttigieg will be the nominee in the future, but I have a sad feeling that like politicians like him will emerge more. And then,
Maybe. I'm not sure.
I don't know. He really tried to tie himself to the Obama example, and that
Yeah.
was really irritating. It,
It was decently effective in the beginning with Iowa.
yeah. I mean, he's a well-spoken guy.
Mhm.
He's a good orator, orator.
He should
He's not.
go. He should run
Yeah,
for Senate in Indiana.
maybe, or
I
governor
think
of Indiana.
I'd rather see him as senator just because I think he could actually have a chance at winning.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, in either office, I think he has a chance at winning. But um, helping to win back the majority in the Senate for the Democrats, I think he would
Absolutely.
be a
Yeah.
decent candidate.
I think he's better that way. I think. Yeah. I think it's fine that way. I actually like him more when he's on the sideline and he's sort of commenting on things.
Mhm.
I don't particularly find him inspiring as a leader. I don't think he says anything
Yeah.
quite interesting. I think his record's kind of weird. I really just, I mean, like, McKinsey's fine as a company. They're
Is it?
fine. No, don't quote me
That's
on that. Listen, I've been saying a lot of things that I don't think are quite. I'm still irritated that the citizen before government thing didn't come out as I wanted it to.
it's okay.
Still,
Don't worry. We'll
I
have
think I
8 more
got it.
episodes to fix this.
I got it the second time. I got it the second time. I'll get it. I'll get it better afterwards. Anyway,
Mhm.
McKinsey's not fine as a company, but like McKinsey's, I don't know. I don't want a president that has that kind of record. I think Buttigieg would do better with more experience, which is fine. Um, I don't know. My
In terms of
joke,
the argument
yeah,
of what happened, I'll stop you.
sure. Go
No, but in
ahead.
terms of, I guess, I personally think it's going to be going further left.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
just one example of this: Bernie Sanders in 2016 calls for a living wage, the $15 minimum wage.
Hmm.
How radical of an idea was that at the time? Pretty
Pretty.
radical.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, we have numerous states actually enacting that. They're not on the federal level, again, by states. Uh, I would argue that's a large part of why Amazon actually raised its minimum wage to $15 an hour as a company is because of Bernie Sanders' constant
Hold on though,
lambasting of
but
them.
Amazon also like most of their workers that would work at a minimum wage are like robots, right? So what would they? I mean, they are in a serious way. They are one of the like biggest automators of their workforce,
No,
right?
and that's fair.
So
Yes.
so it's not really that much of a dent to them in that way.
I would still, yes, I would say it's not too much of a dent to them. And I think that's where the argument can also go to it. Maybe not, yeah, but just the idea Republicans have long been saying that employers can't pay sick leave or can't have paid sick leave because they won't be able to become profitable. Employers can't raise the minimum wage to $15 now because they won't be profitable. Look at what's happening right now.
For
I
sure.
think it yes, it seems daunting, but I do think there is an ability for it to happen, and it will help the economy and just the society in general in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I
And I
think
think these will be
Bernie,
adopted by more and more Democrats as well.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Like Medicare for all might seem like still a very radical idea, but $15 minimum wage, not so much.
Yeah, that's true. I think maybe the party is always going to move towards the left, which is good. I think centrists still my thought is that centrists are always going to be the ones that will sort of lead it and represent it in like a
Mhm.
bigger fashion. But yeah, for sure. I think ideologically it'll move leftwards for sure.
Well, going
After
back, I think
Trump, do you think that there will be like another sort of alt-right president, or will we have like, or will John Kasich get to play? Like, what happens at
I
that? What
don't
do you
think
think?
John
Not,
Kasich,
oh, maybe
Paul
not John
Ryan,
Kasich.
all everyone's
Paul
kind of
Ryan.
forgotten about. No, but here's the thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Paul Ryan, what I think is fascinating about him, okay,
His
he
workout
was a
plan.
huge proponent.
Sorry. What?
No, but he was a huge figurehead in the Tea Party movement. Remember,
Uh-huh.
there were
Yeah.
normal conservatives before the Tea Party, like John Boehner. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. Um, he
It's
was
yeah.
majority
I
leader
don't even
in
remember.
the House.
Yeah.
Oh no, he was a Speaker
Oh,
of the House.
Speaker of the House. Yes, the
Yeah.
he was orange before orange was a thing. I think. Wait, hold on. Continue talking. Continue talking. But yeah,
No, but John Boehner had like before the Tea Party, what I would call it a revolution, the Tea Party
yeah,
revolution of the Republican Party. John Boehner was Speaker of the House before Paul Ryan sort of unseated him.
yeah.
Um, there was the, uh, I guess, that takeover by a more radical right on the Republican Party. And that was through the slow amassing of dedicated and passionate Congress members who believed in that ideology. If the Progressive Caucus could ever have that amount of influence, or even have enough of a bloc in Congress to have enough sway, that would be really interesting. Pamela Jayapal, for example, I believe she's the chair of the Democratic or of the Progressive Caucus. Um, she endorsed Sanders, by the way, and I think she is more of an institution or more of a working within the system person uh, than AOC, than many of the other members of the squad. But
The squad. Sure.
again, I
Yeah.
think Pamela Jayapal is a better. She's a congresswoman from Washington. She is a better representative of the progressive movement, in my personal opinion, than AOC is. I think both have um, the fact that both of them can still win elections and
Hmm.
still have their voice represented is fascinating. Um, but I do think Pramila Jayapal speak like hopefully will be the future of the party
Yeah.
rather than AOC. What do we think about? And again, I think I may have asked this question earlier. Well, no, I asked this in the. Uh, who do we think when we talk about the genuineness of a politician? Who do we think out of the 28 Democrats that ran? Who do we think was the most genuine?
Did you see the image that I sent first?
Uh,
Just
no,
hold
I did
on.
not.
I can answer that question while you see it because I think this is a very interesting topic, and it's a topic that you don't have to. That
Oh, you're
I don't know.
right.
Then right, orange before. I feel like once
John,
Trump got elected, every like Republican just decided to start spray tanning in this insane way. It's
to
crazy.
all the viewers, I don't know if we could. We can't do that. We don't have
No,
the
it's an
ability to do
audio only podcast, but it's a
this.
picture of John Boehner after he's left as the Speaker of the House, after he's resigned, I guess, and he's very orange. He's like representing
Yes.
like big orange in a way. He's still lobbying for clementines and everything.
Oh
These are
my god,
terrible jokes. I'm
these are really
sorry.
bad jokes. It's okay.
um,
But
but
anyways,
yeah,
back to the genuine
genuineness of a
question.
politician. So, so maybe that's what I disliked about Pete Buttigieg a lot. It's gonna really sound like I have this thing about Pete Buttigieg. I have no idea why he irked me so much, but he just talked about youth and in this really weird way. It seemed like as if he was like what an old Democratic guy thought a young politician should look like, and he
Yeah.
just seemed like that kind of thing. And it was just so weird. He like seemed perfectly packaged. He used his own sexuality in this like weird kind of way. Like he talked
Mhm.
about it as if it was just something. to sort of again package as well, like, hey, this is what, you know,
Hmm.
this is what it's like. He was never, I don't know. I'm not going to comment on that because that might be a little problematic, but it just felt like he wasn't talking about it genuinely. Andrew Yang is a guy that I found really genuine. Maybe because he wasn't a politician, wasn't a career politician. Not that there's really anything implicitly wrong with being a career politician, but Andrew Yang, when he came in, he just seemed very firm in the way that he talked about his ideas.
Hmm.
And I think there's something very charismatic about being anti-charismatic almost. Like
Yeah.
he's the kind of guy that like laughs at his own jokes. He like he's very comfortable with awkwardness. He
Hmm.
talks about being like a nerd in high school and everything. And I feel like coming from that kind of background just makes you more okay with not with being like an underdog and everything. And that was kind of him throughout the race. He was
Hmm.
so cool to me. He would talk to Ben Shapiro. He would talk to, Joe Rogan. He would talk to
Hmm.
all these people that like most establishment Democrats would not talk to, that Bernie Sanders talked to afterwards. And like
That's fair.
he seemed
And also
so
just being on
comfortable.
Fox News,
He
for
was so
instance, and
good.
having
He
that.
was so
Yeah.
good. He was so good
Hmm.
on Fox News. He was just like a normal guy. And he was really mindful of the topics that were, like I'll be honest, like there are some things in politics that I don't fully understand. And he seemed like the kind of guy that just kind of got it and was okay with like explaining it to people. I don't know. Now I'm just putting like different things onto him.
No, but the idea of like having a PowerPoint at the State of the Union, for instance,
Yes, 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 yes.
that's what I
Yeah,
can empathize with. Like, I think
yeah,
that's a really interesting idea, just in terms of, yes, you have this platform. Why not use it to educate people and
yes,
explain nuances that are so hard to grasp, rather
yeah,
than just say, I did the best at this, and like, saying, I fixed the economy, I
yes,
did this, I did that.
yes.
Like, it's so
And he had like 14,000 policy
nationalistic.
positions. It was so
Yeah.
insane.
He was
Yes,
like the Elizabeth Warren before Elizabeth Warren.
yeah. And UBI is like a big topic and it's a kind of
Yeah.
crazy topic. And so that's why it always seemed like he was just the UBI guy. But
But
there
I
were a
think
lot of kind
just,
of things that were really interesting about him.
mhm,
Redefining the GDP measurement, that's kind of
yes,
cool. You know, I
that's
mean, like
huge.
we both, you're in econ right now. I'm actually in econ as well. Actually, I just forgot that I'm taking that class right now. But like, well, that's not a good sign for my grade, I guess. But anyway, we are, but like GDP is a thing that, is talked about, right? And GDP is a measurement that was made in like wartime. And the way Andrew Yang talks about that and how that's not a great measurement of the economic health of a country, that's a topic that no other politician, no,
Hmm.
that's a topic that no other politician would ever go near. And that's
Hmm.
awesome. That's so cool.
Hmm.
Um, Other genuine candidates, not that many. I mean, Klobuchar seemed most genuine when she was about to strangle a reporter for asking her who the president. Did you see this interview? There was an interview of Klobuchar where this reporter was like, "Do you know who the president of like Mexico is?" And she didn't, and she had like referenced that like maybe Trump didn't or something. I forget what the context was, but because she was caught off guard, she seemed really irritated and really angry. And it was
Hmm.
there where I was like, that's the genuine Klobuchar. The Klobuchar that's about to like kill someone. I was like, that's it. That's her.
Yeah. Well,
Beto.
remember there was the
Beto O'Rourke.
Gary Johnson moment too. That's like really similar to that with the
What?
Aleppo,
What?
where he was
Which one?
asked about how he would handle the Aleppo crisis in
Like,
Syria.
what's
Aleppo is a
Aleppo?
city in Syria. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but returning back to topic, Overlook, for example.
Beto O'Rourke was a guy that was really genuine when he wasn't
Hmm.
running for president. And then
Yes,
when he began
I
running,
wholeheartedly agree.
Andrew Yang, by the way, as he went on, I felt got more and more politician-y. You know, in some ways it was good. He
Not
was
really.
swearing less. He was swearing less. In other ways, though, he was. You could see him being more diplomatic. So it wasn't ever a bad thing. Um, but I always thought it was fascinating to see why, like, Obama was like this really smooth, kind of like charismatic guy
Hmm.
who really seemed to just keep his calm and be confident in everything.
Hmm.
Andrew Yang, on the other hand, was almost the opposite of it. But he was very he never danced around lines or anything.
Hmm.
He would always say, like, sure, he would make one too many like Asian jokes, but you know, he was trying to appeal to like people that he was trying to disarm people, right?
Hmm.
And it worked. I
Yeah.
was
No, I think that's
disarmed,
fair.
you know. I had no arms. It's so dumb. These are terrible jokes. But
The
yeah,
viewers will get used to it sooner
oh
or later.
god, yeah. No, but like I was absolutely disarmed by Andrew Yang. Did you find anyone else very genuine in the race?
I think there's an obvious choice of Bernie, and I don't think we really need to
Yes,
talk about that too much.
yes,
Um,
yeah,
Consistency just being a huge thing.
yes.
Um, Gabbard, this is the thing. I don't know if Gabbard was necessarily the most genuine looking at our
Gabbard's a weird
past.
one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think I think when she was attacking Harris, I think she was genuine.
Oh yeah, that like she argues against like military intervention and everything, but you can also when she was doing that, I was like, yeah, she was in the military. Like I forgot about that.
Well,
Also,
it's not
when
like
she was
Pete
on,
when he
yes,
mentions it all the time.
yes, it's so great though when she and Pete were both on the same debate stage, and then Pete would like, like Pete almost seemed to just mention it less, and I was like, good job, because because like in military there's like a pecking order, you know, there's like a ranking, and like he's nowhere near where Gabbard would have been. That guy was a resume builder.
Yeah.
That was what was so irritating about it. You went through the college process, I went through the college process. That whole thing feels fake, right? Because I
Mhm.
mean, to me it felt really fake because you're really taking aspects of yourself that you normally wouldn't really talk about in that way, and you're packaging them in like a kind of way that just makes you palatable to people that don't know
Mhm.
you, and you're exploiting things that you normally aren't that passionate about.
Yeah.
Pete seemed to have just done that with his entire life. And sure, I mean, you could say that every politician is like that, but Pete Buttigieg literally checks all the boxes, right? Like military,
Harvard
bread,
education.
sure, yes, good. I'm like, yeah, idiocy, topical. Sorry, I pointed at myself and said idiocy. I pointed at Armand and said topical. Yeah, military, Harvard education, Oxford Rhodes, um, mayor, small town mayor, Midwest. Like he would
Mhm.
just he would just say these things over and over again to the point where I was just looking at him and saying like, yes, a new generation of youth leaders. Yes, yes, yeah. Like I was hypnotized by him.
Mhm.
I shouldn't have to be hypnotized by someone. You know,
Mhm.
it was
I feel
I
like
hated him.
with Pete Buttigieg, again, in contrast to AOC, for instance,
Hmm.
there's a huge amount of contrast because I feel like she actually represents the strength of a democracy, where someone who is not affiliated with a party establishment can win and represent the people,
Yes,
regardless of their political views. Whereas Pete Buttigieg cozies up to the establishment, cozies up
yes,
to the corporate world, and then wins elections and then gains popularity. And I think
yeah.
it feels so disingenuous when you compare it to AOC, regardless of their political views.
I absolutely agree. I like that's such a great comparison because it's not like AOC has more experience than Pete Buttigieg. It's not like she did when she was obviously it's not like she did when she came into it. She was 28 and her job was bartending, right? Like Pete Buttigieg had arguably done more. But but AOC seemed like the kind of person who had political views. Pete Buttigieg did not seem like the kind of person that had political views. His
Yeah.
view was like Panic at the Disco is an interesting band. Would it be cool if I like showed a video of me and my supporters dancing? Did you see the like gymnasium thing that was there?
No, I did not.
Oh my god. Oh, but this has to be a video podcast someday. It would be so much better. Okay. Can I narrate this just like a little bit?
Please do. Please do. Go
All
ahead.
right. So Obama had this thing in I think man, Pete Buttigieg gymnasium. All right, this is fine. I'm just searching this up because like Obama did this when he was running in 2008, and he definitely plagiarized Obama. because Obama was doing this when he was at like a delegate conference or something. It was like right at like Nevada or right at Miami. Whoever's listening to this, I'm definitely wrong about when Obama said this, by the way. I could search this up and I'm trying to search this up and I'm totally wrong. And that's fine. I don't
Just
care.
go for it. Just go for it.
Sure.
Take
But
everything with a
anyway,
grain of salt.
yes. Take all of this with salt. Just eat salt and then listen to us. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Obama's quote was something like, one voice can light up a town, and one town can light up a county, and one county can light up a state, and one state can light up a country, and we can lead this country into a new era or something. That was the messaging behind it, right? It was this sort of
Mhm.
cascading effect. But it was really effective because Obama, first of all, Obama can say things better, right? He just says words better than anyone, right? Obama was also on the occasion of this was just him. I think he had just won a state and he was just like, rallying his supporters. And it was
That could
so
have been
effective.
after Iowa,
It might have been after
possibly.
Iowa.
I'm not too
Possibly.
sure, but
I don't think it was Iowa because I remember it was just not a state that I expected it to be. I think it was like some southern state, I remember.
Mhm.
Um, but anyway, Pete Buttigieg was doing this at a rally for himself, right? And he was in a gym with all his supporters. And then it's a video that's taken, and he's like talking, and he's like, oh no, what's happened? And then all the lights just like go out, and it's complete darkness, and it's just 100 people, and it's Pete Buttigieg at like a podium, and he's like, oh no. And then one supporter bravely turns on the flashlight of their iPhone 10 and puts it up. And then a bunch of other supporters do it, 5 more, and then 10 more, and then everyone does. And then the gymnasium is lit up by iPhone 10 flashlights. Ooh. And then Pete Buttigieg says, you know what we learned today? If we can light up a gymnasium, we can light up a school. And if we can light up a school, we can light up a town. And if we can light up a town, we can light up a state. And if we can light up a state, we can light up a country. And I've never wanted to like just curl up so much. It was so bad. It felt so manufactured. The whole moment was just terrible. And it was, I don't know, that kind of whole thing just summed up why, like, Pete Buttigieg comparing himself to Barack Obama can only work so far, because then when you try to plagiarize specific things that Obama has done, it doesn't come off as genuine. It comes off
Mhm.
as just wrong. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess
I
no
think
one else is genuine as a politician.
maybe.
Yeah.
I do think, and this is kind of going off topic. Um, well, not really, but how Sanders and Elizabeth Warren talked about not taking corporate money. Interesting to note, and I loved Pete Buttigieg's argument with Elizabeth Warren about you took corporate money when you were running for Senate that you now use for your presidential campaign. Again, it doesn't excuse someone who goes to wine caves and gets corporate money from there and who has been doing so unabashedly.
I like wine caves is just like a term. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, I really don't know either. I think it just sums up entitlement as much as possible.
Yeah, but like,
Um,
what is that? Like, what? Just call it like a room or like a. Okay.
no, but what do we? I think, and I'm just going to answer my own. What I would answer my own question.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Sanders and Warren's running without corporate money, without super PACs,
Hmm.
without breaking the weak
That should be the
financial
future.
election laws.
That's good.
Yes,
That should be
and
the future.
that's what I
Yang did that too, by the way.
Yang
Just
too. Yes, I forgot. Go Yang. But seeing how slowly members of Congress are starting to do this. Matt Gaetz, he is a Republican, staunch Trump supporter. I believe from Florida, representing Florida in the House of Representatives. He recently said he was not going to be accepting corporate PAC money as well. And what do we think about? What do you think about it? At least, go ahead.
The idea of people not accepting super PAC money, or
Yeah.
I think it's and I've always wanted to do this as like an experiment. I've never gotten around to it, maybe because I don't know how to do it effectively. But I always think it would be kind of interesting to see how super PAC money specifically influences a politician's voting record and the politician's
Hmm.
messaging. Because if you're just getting um, money that propels your message and it's not really distorting anything you're saying, then I suppose that's better, right? I suppose that's not terrible. Because I think it would be cool if politicians did that. But I mean, quite honestly, like it's not going to be possible for a lot of people to run on just like grassroots funding.
Hmm.
Although that's not a terrible ideal. I don't know. I like I'm playing devil's advocate for it because I obviously want grassroots funding to be the thing in the future. But I think hypothetically, just like it is easier to enable more people to run. No, it's not actually. No, no. I think grassroots funding would be a cool ideal. I think that should be the future of the
Hmm.
party and maybe just politics in general. Trump was grassroots, wasn't he? Kind of, right?
Ish. Yeah.
Ish. He funded himself, which
I don't even think so. I'm
did he
not too
not?
sure.
I don't. Yeah, I can't really trust what that guy says. I
Mhm.
don't know what he says half the time. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, George Soros, who is the uh,
he's the Koch brothers of the Democratic
the
Party.
left. Yeah,
Yes,
he broke the Bank of England, in gaming
it's such a cool topic, right? It's
and
such a
made
cool
$1
thing to
billion
discuss.
off of that.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
but
I
he has
remember. I
been.
wasn't there, but
I wasn't
sorry.
there either. But he has been funding a lot of lower level elections, like attorney generals, or not attorney generals, my bad, district attorneys, and um, I think his using of PAC money is really interesting just to see the amount of influence he has as well as one of those
Is it good?
few.
Is it good when George Soros does it,
I
Mister?
don't think so. I really don't think so.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, all right. That's yeah. Then it's fine.
I
Yeah,
think specifically with those district attorneys' offices in which the races aren't paid nearly as much attention as they should be
yeah.
in terms of local politics, um, just because they can choose who to prosecute and who not to. That is a huge power that they have, with few restraints. Um, but his influence of that is just really interesting to see how people will slowly be like, oh, I guess that's for a good cause. Um, and I think the problem with many members on the left is just maintaining that ideological purity and not giving
Which
into
is
that
not a thing that I
hypocrisy.
expect. I don't expect
I don't know
the.
if I
I don't think they
still
will.
believe in that ideological purity is what the future of the Democratic Party should be.
Should
There's this
be
clip
or
from
will be.
should or will be.
Oh, wait. Could you explain the should be? You don't think that they should be
Um,
ideologically pure?
I think either from like a well, I guess I mean it more from a moral standpoint. I remember there was this argument about whether Democrats should start playing dirty in terms of politics as Republicans have done. And I say Republicans, GOP Republicans rather than conservatives, because I mean the
Yes.
politicians.
Sure, sure, sure.
Um, just in terms of abusing the filibuster more,
Hmm.
um, abusing, I don't know, confirmation hearings, really just
Yes.
ramming through them.
Getting
Um,
our own Mitch McConnell. Like we should have
yeah.
a cute turtle. But I mean,
But
getting our
should
own
the
Mitch
left do that?
McConnell. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
should the left do that? There
Interesting
was
topic.
a clip from Eric Holder, who was not Trump's, my bad, Obama's attorney general. Um, and I thought he was
Oh, I
going to run
remember
for
that guy.
president too.
Yeah.
He said when Republicans go low, we should stomp on them, or something of that effect. Um, and then you have Michelle Obama saying, when they go low, we go high. And I
Can
think
I
we could
ask you
even spend like
something
an entire
quickly about
episode
that
about that.
phrase?
Go ahead.
Could I ask you something? So when she said that, when they go low, we go high, I feel like a lot of people reacted to that, thinking that Michelle Obama somehow coined that phrase. Am I wrong to assume? Like, I
I
feel like so many people were just surprised by the profoundness of it that I was like, she didn't make that phrase, guys. Like that was a, but whatever. Okay, maybe that was just not worth saying at all. I don't
it's
know.
okay.
It's
It's
just
okay.
so weird. It's just so weird to me sometimes. But yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Does
I
anyone?
think we could even spend an episode talking about what that would mean, either viewpoints, and what would that um where would we end up? Which one is more right? Because I think that's a serious question that needs to be addressed for the Democratic Party that hasn't really been addressed post-Trump or about during Trump as well. And yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how that happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, I think final closing thoughts. I think since we are running,
We are running a little bit out of time. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Let's think about something. I mean, we came into this with like a central question of why, how did we get here, and what does this kind of mean? We don't really know how to comment on the Joe Biden versus Donald Trump thing. I think he's pretty electable, even though he's a little problematic as a nominee. He's, I don't know. I mean, it's too early, and plus, because of COVID-19, because of this whole virus shutdown,
Mhm.
we just don't know how to. I at least I don't know how to qualify anything. I can't predict anything, and I'm going to put myself on the same level as most political pundits and say that yeah, I can't predict anything. So I don't think anyone really could effectively predict a lot of where this race is going to go at this point. Because if Trump handles this well, right, then maybe Trump wins. You know, Trump is seen as like a wartime leader, and that's pretty good. If Trump doesn't handle this well, and if it turns out that Trump was kind of like a terrible leader in this situation, then I think people in general would be open to Biden. But first, this has to stop. So that's what I
Mhm.
think. What about you? Closing thoughts?
I think the well, Joe Biden being where he is right now
Hmm.
demonstrates that really to most people on a part of the Democratic Party, electability is more important than ideological purity because I don't think they've really tried going with the like arguing their ideology as much.
Hmm.
Um,
For sure. Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see how Joe Biden contrasts himself with Trump and just how his own views will change over time. And should he win, what will he do with his power? Um, I do think at the end of the day that the search for the soul of the Democratic Party hasn't really yet been answered yet. I think that uh, again, as Shlok said, and to put myself at the same level of pundits, I can't predict anything.
No,
That being
I don't
said,
think
I
anyone
think
can.
um, I do think what will happen specifically with what this will be Bernie Sanders' last time, but to see how much he galvanized young people and to see how engaged people were and passionate his supporters were, where will those people end up 10 years from now when some of those people could run for higher office? I think that will be interesting.
Oh man, and that's going to be another topic for sure because you know the swing left organization and like there are a lot of other leaders that represent Bernie Sanders
Yeah.
that are trying to do what he's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yang, for example, was a guy empowered by Bernie Sanders, right?
Mm-hmm. Pete Buttigieg was supposedly as well.
Yeah, I mean, I hate Pete Buttigieg, but yeah, for sure. And then like, um, I mean, there's a lot of other cool guys, right? Abdul El Sayed, he's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Rhodes Scholar, by the way, who actually, did something interesting. That's
I
kind
didn't
of
know that.
cool, by the way. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, swing left has just gotten a lot of people across the country that are doing fascinating things with their energy and with their time and I think that would be a cool
Mm-hmm.
topic to make an episode out of. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think we have a closing yet.
No.
Um, we spent so much time working on the.
we just
Um,
we just talked. Okay. My closing thought is that I think it'll be interesting to see. I want the lockdown to end. I want to see friends.
I think circumstance really hurt Bernie.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
not
absolutely.
only just, I think Trump's presidency really hurt him the most because it turned the question into electability rather than ideology.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, should I read what we said our ending would be?
What is our ending? What is the ending?
Effective commentary on the issue and what we think it means more specifically for our own situation. How does political apathy affect us and what do we want to do differently?
How's
I
political
don't think that really applies.
and what do we want to do differently?
We will continue that topic for
Yeah,
the next episode.
yeah.
That is we originally wanted to do 2 parts, and I think we will.
I think we
But
will.
just
I think
following up from this,
yeah.
going into those same themes of what young people should do in terms of running a campaign, and even should should are young people trying to change things too quickly? Are they trying to seek higher like are they trying to have more influence than they should at their age? Um, does Biden's age really matter? Who knows?
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, this was the This was
Topical
the
idiocy.
Topical Idiocy podcast
This is
with Arman and Shlok.
yeah, and it was it effective? I don't know. I'm not gonna. I don't know.
If
There's no way to
we
comment.
have, do we have comments? Can viewers interact with us?
I don't. I don't know.
We will work on that for next episode. I want to maybe see if we can get some engagement
You know,
going.
the way we handle ourselves, it lives up to the name. I think.
Yes, I think that is true.
Yeah.
Um, Write us angry emails
All
if they
right.
could find us.